day was like any other in Wonderland. Alice and her friends were sitting around the table drinking their tea and having a wonderful time. The Mad Hatter and the Hare were doing their regular wacky games when the White Rabbit shouted,
"I'm late!"
and sprinted off into the Wonderland forest. Alice was a little discouraged because the day was her 16th birthday and no one had said anything. She figured that since they celebrate unbirthdays, that they don't celebrate birthdays. Alice loved Wonderland, but couldn't help but wonder what a normal life would be like again.
Change places. Move down. Move down. Move down.
Instead of moving down, Alice decided that she needed to clear her head and went for a walk in the forest. In Neverland, Peter and the Lost Boys just got done fighting the pirates and on their way back home. Peter, still ready for an adventure, decided to go off into the Neverland forest alone. On his journey, he discovered a tree that he had never seen before. The tree looked like any other Neverland tree, but had a strange hole at the bottom of it. Peter went up to the hole and found himself sucked into the tree. He was falling and couldn't seem to fly. Next thing Peter knew, he was in a strange room with doors everywhere. In the center of the room there was a table with a key and a cookie on it. Peter walked up to the table, picked up the key and the cookie. He was so hungry he immediately started to eat the cookie. Next thing Peter knew, the table towered over him, and he was the size of a cat. But then he heard a cry. He turned around and saw a door. He lifted up the very large key and put it into the door. He tugged on one side, and the door opened. The next thing Peter saw was a young girl crying. Peter approached the girl and asked,
"Girl, why are you crying?"
Alice stood up in fear.
"I'm not crying, and my name isn't Girl, it's Alice." "I'm Peter Pan,"
said Peter.
"Nice to meet you,"
replied Alice.
"I have never seen you in Wonderland before. Where are you from?"
Peter in shock replied,
"Wonderland?" "Yes,"
said Alice.
"Where did you think you were? A Neverland cave or something,"
said Peter.
"That's where I'm from. Can you help get me back?" "Of course I can,"
said Alice.
"Follow me."
The two journeyed off into the forest. They talked and laughed and got to know one another. Something started to come over Alice. No longer was she looking at Peter as a stranger, nor as a friend. It was something more. The longer they walked, the stronger Alice's feelings got. Being with Peter was like being in her own world. Alice and Peter made many different stops on their journey to the door. They stopped at the creek, where the bread butterflies lived, and the big oak tree. They even played in the flowers outside the Red Queen's castle. As they were rolling around in the flowers, Peter felt something come over him. He started to look at Alice in a different way. In a sudden panic, Peter shot up from the flowers and said,
"We must be going now. I'm sure the Lost Boys are missing me."
Alice looked up at Peter and just nodded her head in agreement. The two walked along the path for a short amount of time, and before they knew it, they were at a very large tree.
"Knock on the bark 3 times and then pull on that branch,"
said Alice. Alice looked up at Peter.
"I will never forget you, Peter.
Peter turned to Alice.
Falling in love with you has been my greatest adventure."
Peter entered the door and walked away as Alice watched the door close slowly behind him.